We planted these pine trees almost 25 years ago. Every day after school and every weekend for months we'd be in the field. What couldn't be planted by machine was done by hand. Day after day, row after row, I'd work my way through the fields, dragging a bag of pine seedlings behind me. After it was all over, we waited. Year after year, we watched their slow vertical progression as they stretched above the grass and then above our heads. Slowly, they overtook the horizon until a field of pine seedlings became a forest. They've taught me a lot over the years. The Ouachita National Forest is the oldest national forest in the American South. At 1.8 million acres, the mountain range is larger than the state of Delaware and spans from central Arkansas to southeastern Oklahoma. And unless you're from around here, chances are you've never heard of it. These hills are my home. The forest begins at the end of my driveway, and I've walked these ridges through the best and worst days of my life. It's easy to wax nostalgic. As a kid, I used to wander alone through the woods with my .22 rifle hunting squirrels, and I remember the years when all the men of my family would gather for deer camp in November. And for all the happiness, I've wandered through these woods searching for hope when it seemed like there was no happiness left in the world. It's hard to describe the peace that accompanies solitude among trees. It's hard for me to describe the feeling of leaning against an old pine and feeling its ever so slight sway in the breeze. It's hard to describe the sound of a crow's wings as it flies overhead, or what it's like to have a fawn, still in spots, walk up to you because it's too young to be afraid. I've watched these hills change over my lifetime, mostly for the better. I've watched old clear cuts return to young forest and wildlife populations increase. I'll be the first to admit that one of my first loves was trees. From walking underneath their canopies to cutting an old pine into lumber, trees have much to teach. Taking decades to mature, trees are required by nature to play the long game. The history of a tree can be seen from its growth rings. The good years with plenty of rain and the years of drought and fire are chronicled in the wood. Good years and bad, they push higher into the sky. Pruned from wind and ice, if an old tree could talk, it could say much about what it takes to endure. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear them say, despite our scars, we grow, we change, we mature, and we move forward. I think we'd do well to pay attention. It seems these days we're always reaching for what's immediately in front of us. Fewer and fewer people are willing to work long and hard toward a goal. Too many of us want the easy and the safe path. What we don't realize is this is actually the more dangerous way. If you pay attention to the ways of nature, you'll find that a tree that grows slow actually produces stronger wood than a faster growing tree. The tougher the year, the tighter the growth ring, and the deeper the roots travel. The tighter the rings and the deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. It's the trees that never had to work for survival that are the first to blow down in the storms. I see it far too often at the university. Kids who were too smart for their own good and were handed every opportunity in the world. They were pretty or handsome, and so people naturally liked them. School came easy, so they didn't have to study, and because the grades came easy, scholarships paid for school so they didn't have to have a job. But then all too often, after graduation, higher education is kicked to the curb by the school of hard knocks and they fall flat on their collective faces. And it's at this point, they, like us, have a choice. We can either live in self-imposed exile We can shield ourselves in apathy and cynicism. Or we can wallow in self-pity. Or we can get up, dust ourselves off, and go kick some ass. I've met far too many people who simply give up when things get difficult. They're determined to be a victim of their circumstances and resign themselves to yet another failure. From their mouths come excuse after excuse on why they can't succeed. But I have news for you. That's a bunch of crap. Here's a secret about conflict. We need it. Conflict makes us resilient. When we discover something that we want, conflict will undoubtedly follow. But it is our willingness to work through this conflict that we establish the value of our goals. Joy never changes us into better people. And day after day and year after year, it's only through hard times that we face ourselves and our circumstances and we become stronger people. We discover that we are capable of enduring much, which makes us capable of achieving far more than we ever thought possible. Like the trees, we come to realize that despite our scars, we grow, we change, we mature, and we move forward. But we have to be willing to play the long game, and we have to be willing to sweat, work, and bleed in the process.